Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salailo Makudiri. The second story of today comes from Transworks elite school sports circles, and it has stirred far deeper debates about inclusion and prejudice. Roedean School and King David Linksfield, two of the city's most prominent private schools, were due to face off in a girls' first team tennis match earlier this week. However, the fixture didn't happen, and now there's a controversy that has seemingly erupted and bubbled over that. And we're going to be unpacking why, because from what we have gathered initially, Roedean cited prior academic commitments for withdrawing from the match. But there was a leaked voice note of some sort, which alleges that some Roedean staff members and King David's principal suggest that pressure from parents unhappy about playing against a Jewish school was the reason why that match couldn't take place. King David Linksfield, part of the King David School Network, and deeply rooted in Johannesburg's Jewish community, has condemned the turn of events and says the cancellation has caused hurt and exclusion among its students. An allegation that Roedean Schools has refuted completely. And we're going to unpack what's really above the surface of the story, and could there be an underlying layer of why we find ourselves where we are, and what could have been just a simple tennis game between two schools has become an issue of national debate and national conversation. And we'll be speaking shortly with Megan Choritz of the South African Jews for Free Palestine, a group actively engaged in debates around Jewish identity, discrimination, and Palestine solidarity here in South Africa. Megan, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you on air.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure's all ours, and I think we'll jump right into it. How would you, from your vantage point, characterize the core issue here? Is this about school sport logistics, or is there something deeper that we can maybe try to peel the layers of between Roedean Schools and King David's Linksfield?
So I think before we even go to the nitty-gritty of what happened, I think it's absolutely important to know that, as far as I'm concerned, this is an absolute distraction from what's really happening, because the illegal Zionist entity of Israel has just legalized the execution of political prisoners. They have escalated what's happening on the West Bank, the stealing and annexation of the West Bank, and of course the ongoing fake a ceasefire, which continues to kill millions of Gazans. Not millions, obviously not millions, but a lot. But daily there are bombings of Gazans. So what better distraction than to come up with some schoolyard politics and some fake name calling that of anti-Semitism? It's 100% Zionist playbook, Hasbara 101.
And I think that's very, very important to note out that there's something bigger at play here, and that there are always going to be little distractions that are going to be popping out. There's something that I think it was a development that came out later yesterday, where Roedean has publicly said that the match was cancelled for academic reasons, obviously, but that there was that leaked voice note which suggested that parents objected to playing King David Linksfield's team because they're Jewish school. How should the public interpret this kind of discrepancy between official statements and what appears to have been said privately, or what could be concocted to be the real issue here?
Look, I think we need to be honest. Roedean really didn't, the principal of Roedean didn't behave herself very well. And they made this statement saying that there'd been a clash in terms of scheduling, and that's why they couldn't play. And then she ended up having a conversation with the principal of King David, who I assume recorded the conversation, which is also another issue that really is quite unsettling. And from that conversation, it actually comes out that the principal of Roedean was incredibly simpering and apologetic and kind of asking for King David to understand their poor little position. It's awful, and it's fence sitting of the highest degree. I don't understand why Roedean can't just come out and say, we don't want to play. We don't want to play with Zionists. We don't want to play with a school that is a Zionist school. We don't want to play with a school that is 1,000% in support of Israel. And I don't understand why Roedean are really struggling with that part of it. It doesn't make any sense. They should absolutely be clear and comfortable and say, children and parents of Roedean School do not want their kids, and the kids don't want to play with Zionists. End of. That's it.
And I think that's very, very important. It's freedom of association. You can.
But more specifically,
Yes.
if we look at the history of South Africa, if we look at the extraordinary success of the sports boycotts, if we look at all sorts of at countries and clubs and rugby clubs and soccer clubs saying we will not play with the racist apartheid regime, we will not play. It's the same thing. And I think that once again, our responsibility is to understand that 90%, if not more, of the Jews in South Africa are Zionists. They're not doing themselves any favors by saying that this is a Jewish issue. It's a Zionist issue. And unfortunately, because the numbers are skewed against Jewish anti-Zionists and even Jewish non-Zionists and even Jews who are completely oblivious, they get to call it anti-Semitism when it absolutely isn't. And it's enough already.
And I want to touch on that, the anti-Semitism aspect of things, because I think, especially since after October the 7th, it almost feels like the waters of what constitutes anti-Semitism have been muddied a lot because of how cheaply it has been thrown around. As a Jewish person, what would your definition of anti-Semitism be in 2026? And does this qualify, this issue around Roedean and King David, does it qualify as anti-Semitism from your vantage point as a Jewish South African?
Well, let's work backwards. It absolutely doesn't qualify. But this is the only kind of false reasoning and hasbara that Zionists can use. So anything that's anti-Zionist, or any time anyone makes a statement for against Zionism and the illegal state of Israel, it becomes, according to South African Zionist Jews, anti-Semitic. So it's an absolute abuse. Ironically, the term Semite is to do with people who are from that region of the world. Really, Arabs. That's what the word means. If you're an anti-Semite, you're anti-people from that area of the world. So ironically, that doesn't even include Ashkenazi Jews, who shouldn't really be calling themselves Semites anyway. I should not be calling myself a Semite. That's typical.
I'm so sorry to interject because we are really running out of time, but I want to focus and put a spotlight a bit on King David Linksfield as the school. Is this the same King David school where Aaron Bayhawk, if I'm not mistaken, was taught that he needs to serve the IDF and subsequently became a sniper of the IDF when he turned 19, straight after matric? And there seems to be these organization of schools in South Africa, these schools that are essentially training young South African kids to go serve the IDF and kill, as you mentioned, thousands and thousands of innocent men, women, and children in Palestine.
I think it's important just to be very, very clear. The school is not teaching children to be members of the IDF. The school supports children becoming members of the IDF. And there are all other kinds of organizations that have access to the children to encourage them to become members of the IDF. There's Telfed, which runs a lone soldier program, which is a kind of recruiting program for kids in South Africa, in Australia, I think also in the UK and the USA, to encourage Jewish children to join the IOF. So it's not that children are learning. It's not that the school is. It's not that there's a direct line with the school to creating IOF soldiers, but it's certainly something that is introduced to the kids.
Well, there you go, Megan. Thank you so much for joining us and for unpacking, I think, very, very important aspects of this issue. Hope we chat again soon. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Delilo. Look forward to seeing you again.
There we go. And with that, we're going to take a quick break. News and views continues after this.